Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Kmart, and I want to talk about some basketball. And today we are carrying on with our early off-season preview series, taking a look at each of the 30 teams in the league and identifying a couple of questions or issues for each of those teams prior to the start of free agency and the sort of off-season frenzy here. So today, we are looking at the worst team in the NBA by record, and that is the Detroit Pistons. So, well, not too much positive to say for the Pistons here. They pretty much tank for the entirety of the season, and then they still got a high draft pick, just maybe not quite the victory in the Wembenyama sweepstakes that they had been hoping for. But either way, we'll dive right into it here. Take a look at some of the stats for the Pistons, throwing those up on your screen right now. They end the season with a 17-65 record. That is 15th in the Eastern Conference, 5th in the Central Division, and as we mentioned before, the worst record in the league. So obviously they miss the postseason here, and we can take a look at some of their ratings. Offensive rating, 28th in the league. Defensive rating, also 28th in the league, puts their net rating at 29th. So, not great for them across the board here. They did play with the 15th highest pace in the league, so they were at least around sort of the middle of the pack on that front, and they had the 29th highest payroll in the NBA as well. So, like we sort of said for the Rockets, if you are going to suck, at least, do it without having to spend a whole lot of money. But that gets us into the additions and losses here for the Pistons this offseason, and so far it has been pretty much all additions for the team. We will start with their draft picks. They got Osar Thompson. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Twin brother of Amen Thompson, who was drafted, I think, just one spot before him. So they get the other sort of member of the Thompson twins. They also get Marcus Sasser, not sure which one, in the draft after exchanging draft rights with, I believe it was both the Celtics and the Grizzlies. The pick bounced around a little bit, but Sasser joins the team as well. And then after that, we have a trio of players who had their team options picked up by Detroit. Alec Burks, Isaiah Livers, and Eugene Omarui. Oh, I hope that one's right. I'm messing up a lot of names today, but can't be helped. But two young guys from the draft, three guys coming in with those team options for, I'd still say, relatively cheap, and the Pistons sort of shore up some spots in their lineup. And as I mentioned before, as of right now, no confirmed losses for this lineup. There is something that's supposed to be going back to Boston for that Sasser, whichever one trade. What Detroit gave up for it has technically not been determined yet. So that could be a player. It could also just be, a future pick or cash or something of that nature. But for right now, we don't know. So I'll at least sort of make a note of it. But that does get us into our questions here for the Pistons. Question number one is Cade Cunningham ready to come back? That is the biggest question for the Pistons right now, whether Cunningham will be healthy and ready to go for the 2023-2024 season. He had a strong rookie campaign. We were ready to see sort of that next step forward for Cade before the injury limited him to, I think it was just 12 games in the previous season. And unfortunately, once he went down, the tank job was on in full effect, right? They just sort of rolled the tanks out there night in and night out because there really wasn't too much left for them to do, or at least they didn't think there was much more for them to do without Cunningham. So the team goes out, they win just 17 games in total. They sent away guys like Sadiq Bey for assets. So the good news, at least, is that those trades did bring back assets as I mentioned, right? They got some pieces and some potential projects. Guys like Bogdanovich, guys like Wiseman, guys like Burks, who they just picked up the team option for. All of those guys weren't quite getting the opportunities that they needed where they were previously. Now they come to Detroit where maybe they can get a little bit more playing time and a little bit more patience from a team that isn't expecting immediate contention out of them. So those are all good. The problem is all of that still revolves around having Cunningham running the show, right? All of these guys can develop and can be solid pieces, but they need that foundational piece at the center to play around, and Cunningham seems like that guy. Now, we saw guys like Killian Hayes and sometimes guys like Jaden Ivey run the point in Cade's absence, and they weren't bad, so to speak, although I don't know, there was a little bit more sort of hate for Killian Hayes than Ivy between the two of them, but I don't know how much of that is real and how much of that is just the internet being strange. But either way, regardless of which one it was, they still couldn't quite match up to Cade's presence and his production in that slot, right? And I say both of those because I count those separately. Cade's numbers are great in terms of what he can produce, the points, the assists, etc. But just the level of confidence that the Pistons seemed to have when he was on the court compared to the way that they look without him, even if you sort of set the numbers aside, they played differently. They seemed to play more confident in their own sets when it was Cade running them compared to backups or other starters forced to sort of shift their positions. So hopefully they get him back. Hopefully he's good to go and he's back at 100% and the Pistons can sort of get the ball rolling once again on their rebuild process. But as a rebuilding team, there is the obligatory question that we must ask. Question number 2, do the Pistons take a run at a big free agent, right? Like I said, it's an obligatory question. For teams that are bad and are stockpiling assets every season, we're going to ask, is this the year that they unload those assets to pick up some sort of star player? Now, this last season with Cade hurt, the plan was set for them, right? Stand pat, don't take on any crazy amounts of money, right? Tank for a draft pick, move someone like Sadiq Bey for potential and for assets. But, well, now what, right? The pick that you were tanking for, that you were hoping could be Victor Wembanyama, did slip to 5th. And while Ausar Thompson is an incredibly talented young player, he wasn't exactly what the Pistons were hoping for. I am trying my best not to shit talk Thompson here because it's not fair to him that he's not Victor Wembanyama, because Wembanyama has been hyped up for years, right? Coming out of the French league. So you're in the same draft class as him and you don't have nearly as much hype surrounding you. Honestly, I think that motivates him. I think the Pistons still got the best available player at the position, really, and they can do something with Thompson here and add him to what's already sort of a lineup that's been building assets and developing their talent. But you know, that wasn't quite what they were hoping for when the Pistons only won 17 games. They were looking for the number 1 pick, but they've got to work with what they've got. What they've got is still pretty damn good. What else is good for the Pistons is that they are a team that is projected to have a potentially pretty high amount of money to spend under the cap for this season. So we're not talking about luxury. They've got some space before they even hit the normal salary cap, if I have done my math correctly. So they had cap holds from guys like Nerlens Noel, Kemba Walker, DeAndre Jordan, sort of coming off the books for them. And, you know, when was the last time you saw any of those guys play for the Pistons? So that money comes off the books. It sort of frees them up a little bit, and maybe they take a run at a free agent. Maybe they go and sign somebody to play next to the young guys, to provide help, reliable sort of second option status for someone like Cade Cunningham to work off of and go from there, right? I think if the Pistons are going to add somebody, that's the way that they do it. I don't think they want to go for a trade. I don't think they want to sacrifice too many of their assets right now. but they've got money to spend, and they could spend it. And they could spend it on a guy on maybe like a 2 or 3 year contract, right? No massive 4 to 5 year things that sort of lock you up long term. Someone that you can bring in on a relatively smaller, shorter term contract, just sort of a little bit of a trial run. So we'll see what it is they look to do here. In terms of the final question here for the Pistons, and I'm also realizing it is raining outside, so hopefully you can't hear that. If you can, I apologize, but we're just going to power through it because we are on the final question. That is, do the Pistons' assets actually fit together? Now, this is kind of a big question, also kind of a vague one, that has been put on the back burner while the team tanked, right? Because they didn't have Cade Cunningham. They decided, let's just build assets. And while you were tanking, while you were only winning 17 games, none of that mattered. It didn't matter if your players fit together on your roster or not, because your intention really wasn't to win games. But now you might be starting to actually put this all together, and now you start wondering, do all of these assets that we've picked up synergize in the way that we want? So I don't know. It's still kind of tough to describe, right? In a scenario where they were tanking, it was okay for Bogdanovich or Ivy or Hayes or Wiseman to be averaging, 10 field goal attempts per game for certain stretches of the season, because the team was just kind of throwing stuff out there and seeing what stuck, right? Just trying potential lineups, potential sets in a potentially non-tanking season, and with Cade potentially back and running that offense, a lot of those guys who were used to seeing more opportunities when they were tanking and not caring as much about the structure will have some of those opportunities taken away, and not all of them will be able to maintain their efficiency, right? Some of them will see their production drop without the volume to go along with it. So it's also should be noted that Cade returning does not automatically bump up this team's defense, which was atrocious last season. So the hope here is that players coming back and the team trying to now actually win games will lead to more structure and very little friction. Hopefully all those pieces do fit together. They find some way to balance out the minutes and the opportunities in a way that allows the Pistons players to continue to grow without sort of throwing it all to chaos the way that it was last season. That's not really guaranteed, but it's the best that you can hope for here if you're Detroit. So yeah, that last question kind of throws us for a little bit of a loop there, but hopefully everybody fits and falls into their roles once this team is actually starting to try and win some games. But that is going to do it for the Pistons here. Some interesting stuff for them to think about in terms of trying to finally bring this rebuild to an end, finally trying to become a competitive team in the league. They have a hell of a long way to go, but this season could be sort of those first baby steps towards a scenario where the Pistons are back to being maybe not an elite team, but a team that we don't automatically sort of write off as being one of the worst in the league, like they have been for the past couple of seasons. So let me know what you think. Where do you think the Pistons are going? Do you think Cade comes back at 100%? Do you think that they make not a trade? Do you think they make a move to go sign a big free agent? And which of their sort of young guys do you think could step up and maybe be that second or third option next to Cunningham, if any one of their young players even has that potential right now? So let me know. Feel free to share your thoughts. Again, I still don't know if you can hear the rain outside or not. Hopefully you can't, and you just think I'm being paranoid, because I am. But we shall see. If you could hear it, again, thanks for bearing with me. But for now, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.